Good evening, Vancouver, and welcome back to Canucks After Dark, an early edition, a 7 p.m. start time. It's like we're professional hockey players, unlike our favorite hockey team. As always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are you doing today, Clay?
Parker, I'm great. Thank you for asking. I know this is Canucks After Dark, but we had a bit of excitement yesterday. I had my meetup. You were down in Seattle watching a certain favorite football team do their thing.
Yeah. I think we both had very action-packed days with you witnessing, what was it, like 11 goals?
It was pretty fun.
I mean, that's almost as many points as there were in the football game. I think it was only like 1916. So yeah, it's like half. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So you saw a good football game, and you saw the end of the other game, the Green Bay Detroit, and
yeah, it was a very good sports day for me. I didn't watch the Canucks, although I did actually. I watched the highlights up in the stands during the commercials.
Oh, good for you.
But I watched the Seahawks win 3 quarters of very boring football, and then a quarter and a half of great football, and then I watched the Lions Packers game at a bar down there, and then I got home late, and here we are.
Awesome. So Seahawks make the playoffs. Canucks have a 4% chance. Is that how it goes right now?
Yeah. If you told me in September that one of the Seahawks and the Canucks, one of them are going to be a playoff team, I would not have put any of my money in the Seattle corner.
And as you know, I literally put a lot of money in the Vancouver corner. And it's just one of those things, I'm not complaining. I choose to make that expenditure, and I enjoy going to games. But honestly, what a disappointment. What a disappointment of a season. And we're looking at your thumbnail. You'll never get me to say the T word, but you might get me to agree that is indeed the best course of action. And didn't you have one of your friends reach out and say they love the thumbnail?
Yeah. One of my friends who knows nothing about hockey just saw the thumbnail. I was like, wait, do the Canucks get a tank? Like, do they buy a tank? And I was like, no, that's not what that means. But yeah,
amazing.
It's another pretty not great week for the Canucks, right? We talk about winning the week. That was Boudreau's thing when he showed up, and the Canucks went out and they lost this week, and they've lost the last 2 weeks now, right? They had the one win over the Sharks, and then 2 losses, and then they had the loss, and then this week would be the loss over the Islanders, beat the Avalanche, and then lose to the Jets. And I mean, the story of this one, 4-2 over the Avalanche, that's great, but 6 goals against from New York, 7 goals against from Winnipeg. Turns out that the defense that we all said wasn't very good isn't very good.
Oh man, you give up 6, give up 2 in a win, and then give up 7. And I get these are talented teams. They're all teams that are above the Canucks in the standings, but it's interesting, Parker. I know we'll go chronologically, but at my meetup yesterday, I actually was talking to some people, and I said this was actually the first stretch of games where I think we truly missed Demko. Martin had such a good start. Colin Delia has been a nice feel-good story, but neither of those guys played really well yesterday. But we'll get to that. But yeah, I agree with you. It's the poor defense is starting to show, and starting to show in spades when the goaltending doesn't bail them out, or the offense doesn't outscore their problems.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that this team has sort of been able to hang their hat on, is the ability to outscore some of their problems. It's tough to outscore 6 and 7 goals, though. These last few games put the Canucks at second in the league in goals against, second in a bad way, obviously. I believe it's about 3.9 goals against per game. Meanwhile, 4 is the league lead with the Anaheim Ducks. 4 goals against a game is such a crazy high number. Because you don't win. You don't win if you allow 4 goals. Like, it's so rare. Yeah. The most common scores in hockey are 3-2 and 4-2.
Sure.
2 is less than 4, and they're allowing 4 night in, night out.
And Parker, we've established I have about 25 or 26 years on you, but I remember what they called the dead puck era in the 90s, or early 2000s, where 2-1 was the way to win a game. 3-2 was the way to win a game. 1-0. So can you imagine, like, to double that now and to be giving up 4 a game? It's ludicrous, actually, when you think about it. It really is.
Yeah, it's actually impressive. And this is like I said, it is the highest scoring year that the NHL has seen in quite a while. But yeah, I mean, the Canucks allow on average more goals per game than the top scoring team in the league scores per game. Buffalo Sabres, top scoring team in the league, 3.89 goals per game. They also allow 3.5 goals against the game. They are truly outscoring their problems, considering they're like ninth in goals against. But yeah, Anaheim Ducks are at 4.07 goals against per game. The Canucks 3.9. The penalty kill sits at a nice 68%, league worst again.
You think they'll get over 70 by the time the season ends?
They've had no indication that will happen. It's a percentage. It doesn't it's not something that increases over the season. It did last year because it was so horrendous. But we're talking about two teams that have now had two different management groups, two different coaches, completely different coaching staffs, and a lot of the same players, and even some different players, and they still have the worst penalty kill in the league. It is impressive that they can be so consistent.
Yeah, no, truly. And then the power play is starting to slip a little bit. They were up number 5, number 6. What are they at now? Can you look it up real quick? They must be
at 24.8%. So it's a good power play.
Yeah.
But the problem is it's a streaky power play, right? It's a power play that scores 2 or 3 goals in a game and then none the next one. Right. So they'll win you a game, but then they won't save you in others.
That's a great point. Yeah, they'll win you a game, and then and it's not just not scoring, but obviously it means you're not scoring at times where you absolutely need to score, where you need that goal to change momentum or to negate another shorthanded goal. 9 shorthanded goals against Parker. 9.
Yeah, my hot take is that's too many. Now I don't have the number in front of me, unfortunately, but I can pull it up pretty quick.
Yeah.
Let me just pull up the old power play get stats. The Canucks have scored 33 power play goals, and they have 9 shorthanded goals against. So their power play goal differential is 24. There's actually a full-on stat here, and it gives you your net, your power play net, because it's basically your instead of the 33 goals that they have, it takes the 9 away. So it's 24 power play goal differential on how many opportunities, 133. Yep. And that gives them a net power play instead of 24.8 of 18.1%, which is good for not 9th in the league, but 21st in the league. So suddenly this power play that is, one of the better ones in the league, a top 10 power play. Well, you put those league leading 9 shorthanded goals against into the equation. And suddenly, it's the net wise, it's 21st in the league.
So 9 shorties drops you 12 spots, drops you 6. That's wow.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list of shorthanded goals against, 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 8 Tampa Bay, but they've also scored way more. 3, 5, 6, and then eventually you get down to 9. It's like most are 2 or 3. There's a couple of 4s. Until you get to the Canucks.
Because and let's talk about a shorthanded goal. It not only means that you couldn't stop the puck from staying in their zone, but then you give up not only a rush or a good scoring chance, and your goalie doesn't save it. So there's a lot of things that got to go wrong. And of course, this by having one more man than the other team. So 9. Not even halfway through the season. It's absurd. It really is. And you just read out the rest of them. It sounds like you're ordering pizza, actually. 2-2-2. But yes, it's compared to the rest of the league. That's
Yeah, and they're backbreakers, right? Like if you're in a tight game, you're down a goal, you're on a power play, you need to score, and you allow for an goal against. Yeah. Like you're not coming. You're done, right? It's so demoralizing. It takes you out of it. Most likely you're not scoring on that power play because it's probably half gone at the very least.
Yeah.
And it's it is a killer. Absolutely.
And we saw that yesterday when Winnipeg was up 5-4. Canucks get a power play, and instead of making it 5-5 with a whole period to go, now it's 6-4, and basically the game's in the bag. Great point. Backbreaker. Yep. Backbreaker.
Absolutely. All right. Do we want to do some game reviews, some chronological?
Sure. I'm trying to watch the Islanders Canucks highlights because I actually can't remember other than Tyler Myers having a really bad game. But do you remember anything from the 6-2 loss?
We tried to discuss this before. I still can't tell if I watched this game or not. It is actually, there's not I'm thinking back to last Tuesday. I don't remember doing anything last Tuesday. And if the game was on, I would have watched it.
You must have watched it, Parker. You must have.
Was there a Canada game on at the same time? Am I crazy?
Oh.
Maybe that was it. I don't know. Either way, but I look at this and I'm like, this is kind of familiar, but I literally don't remember any of these things happening. So, I mean, couldn't have been that good, I guess.
Barzal was good.
Yeah.
If you like him. Horvat got 2. Didn't he? Or at least
Yeah,
one?
he had 2, and I said that. I looked and I was like, well,
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
that doesn't help me at all because he scored 2 so many times this year.
Okay, I did just look. One was a deflection, which he's very, very good at, and one was a bumper play. So, and there's 3-2 going in the third, so it's not like they were completely out of it.
Yeah. No, Canada didn't play on the Tuesday. I genuinely have no idea.
Okay, I'm the guy between the two of us. I'm the old guy, so I'm the one whose memory is allowed to fade a little bit. This is actually a tad concerning to me, Parker.
It's the first one. This is the first time this has happened.
Okay, fair.
I've looked on my calendar. Tuesday, there's nothing on there. I don't know. I remember the other 2 games because I didn't watch them though.
Actually, do one thing. I'll stall for 30 seconds. Look up your tweets that will tell you if you were watching the game.
That's a good one.
Okay, so as Parker's trying to figure out where the heck his Tuesday night went, this was a game where the Canucks were at home. They scored a power play goal. They gave up a power play goal. They dominated on the faceoffs. But the one thing that was big is they only blocked 3 shots. And the narrative of this was, were the Canucks willing to pay the price? Because, again, 3 blocked shots. Islanders had 18, and that doesn't mean you automatically win, but it does kind of talk a bit about the resolve and the fortitude of your team. Have you figured it out, Parker?
I watched the game. Because I tweeted out, because I remember they started so hot, right? And I tweeted out, who is this team and what have they done with the Canucks? And that turned around real quick. And then I also tweeted out, one day Bo will stop tipping every point shot in, right?
Okay.
And then Myers with the pizza, the prime Lucas pizza, which I now remember. And then Ethan Bear had the bad play.
Yes.
Then I tweeted out, Ethan Bear is actually just Tyler Myers in disguise, which is very sad because I like Ethan Bear a lot.
I just love the fact that we had to go to your Twitter to confirm or deny that you actually were in town and watching this game.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't. It wasn't my only focus. I'll tell you that.
Yes, I do remember. Yeah, Tyler Myers, bad giveaways, and then Ethan Bear inexplicably takes the puck from the Canucks side of center and takes it all the way back to his own zone and then puts it off, not even off the boards, up the middle, boom, boom. And that was the backbreaker because that made it 4-2. Then I remember Cizikas scores because he was just really fast. Barzal did a really good job of drawing everyone, remember, to his side, puts it across. Cizikas scores it. And then Pajot, I can't remember what was the shorthanded goal? Oh, another shorthanded goal. This is bad.
I think I stopped watching it 4-2.
Okay.
My last tweet was at 8:57, so I just might not have been there.
So you might have heard me say the Canucks only blocked 3 shots. I know it was interesting. The next day, Bruce Boudreau, in his media availability, said, well, I can't block the shots for him. I'm not the one on the ice. And then he kind of walked that back the next day, but he was frustrated, obviously, with his team's performance.
Without looking, do you know how many blocks they had the following game?
I know it was big, like 20 or something like that.
Yeah, it was 24, and the Avs had 6. So they clearly just saved them all up.
And Spencer Martin, stop me if you heard. Oh, no. Actually, we haven't heard this before because he's played so well, but this has maybe been the start of his kind of rough spot. 23 saves and 28 shots. The book, Parker, is to shoot high on this guy to his glove hand. Unfortunately, that's the book now.
That's the problem, right? You have a new goalie who's like decent and he gets hot for a bit, but if he has an Achilles heel and it gets found, and video coaches know what they're doing. They will find those things and they will put the pressure on. So everyone I'm seeing so many in the minus column. No one with a positive plus minus that game. Which is kind of impressive. Only 2 players weren't a minus. That's Mikheyev and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. It's not a name I would have guessed.
No. Oh, by the way, Dexter, great to see Dexter from Nanaimo. I was the one who held the sell the team message up behind IMAX, Sat, and Dan during the Canucks crack. And wow, that's impressive.
That's impressive. You got the sign in because I know they're pretty tough on those.
Yes. Welcome, Dexter. And we usually get to questions later, but Jasker, just because you asked very nicely, and then we'll get back to our game recaps.
Jack, how many of the shorthanded goals are because of JT Miller? Unfortunately, the NHL stats page does not show that.
Yes.
I wish it did. Natural stat trick would probably tell me, but that would take me a little bit to pull up.
But we will say that yesterday in the Winnipeg game, it was not him. It was the second unit that was on. But we'll get to that in a second.
Well, the second unit's only on because the first unit didn't score. So that's just as bad.
Okay. Islanders game that I watched from home, a rare Tuesday night where I did not have bowling. You think you watched from home. Let's move on.
Sounds good. All right. Um, we're going to Colorado. Is that the
Yeah.
plan? Colorado. Canucks at home against the Avs. Seems like one of those easy losses. But the Canucks came out again pretty hot in this one, or at least second period for the most part. I didn't watch it, but you see shots 43-32. You see Andrei Kuzmenko scoring a couple. I did watch all the highlights.
Yep.
But yeah, what were your big takeaways from this one?
Yeah, this one, the Canucks played them pretty even in the first period. This game, I was at, and then but Rantanen scored a power play goal. That's fine. It's Rantanen. This is a good team. And then that was with 1 minute left in the first. We always talk about Parker goals within the last 90 seconds or goals within the first 90 seconds of periods are backbreakers. And guess what? Gerard scores on a long shot. And both of these goals, they weren't Delia's fault, actually. Delia I would do this too. If I knew that I wasn't going to see the puck, I would just stand still, hope it would hit me, and then I would make a point of not moving to show everyone that I did not see the puck. That's what happened on both the Avalanche goals. But then it was all Canucks from there on in, and it wasn't like it was a fluke win or a lucky win. Kuzmenko pops a couple, as you mentioned. Besser gets a goal, and then JT Miller near the end of the game. And this is I think when the first time they put Pettersson, Miller, and Kuzmenko, what I like to call the 96-49 line, and they did really well in their debut together. So full value, and it was Colin Delia in net, which was surprising.
Yeah. Apparently, I saw the thing saying that Delia had a fantastic night. Yeah, 30 of 32, which usually you can't go wrong with that. You see Oliver Ekman-Larsson keep putting up points. Apparently, Tyler Myers a +3. Like one of those games where all the people you need to do well did something, right? You got Kuzmenko scoring 2, Pettersson gets 2 points, Besser gets a goal, JT Miller gets a goal, right? Everything's going right. It's one of those games that this is the kind of games that the Canucks should be playing, right?
Yes.
Sure, they gave up a couple goals early. They were behind the 8 ball from 22 minutes in, but they have the firepower to work themselves out of those situations, and their goalie stood on their head. Not Thatcher Demko like we assumed it might be. But the goalie was able to stand on their head enough to keep them in it, and they're able to pull out a 4-2 win. But unfortunately, that hasn't been the way the year has turned out.
And it's so crazy. The hustle stats that you're talking about, Parker, 24 block shots, which was impressive. And you look at some of these numbers. Will Lockwood had 8 hits in 9.5 minutes. Pettersson had 7 shots on goal. And then the one I really like, Lazar, 2 shots, 4 hits, 5 blocks. That was really impressive. And then on the D, look at Luke Shen, 6 hits and 6 blocks. So I think they felt challenged. Not only were they taking on the defending Cup champs, but they were also knowing that they're going to go on a road trip, a very tough road trip. And they were challenged by the coach, and they were full value for this win.
Yeah, and it's one of those wins that you look at as potentially being the start of something, right?
Yeah.
You look back, the classic examples that Canucks went over Carolina in 2011 or whatever it was, right? Like they're behind the 8 ball, they're 2 games below 500 coming in. They need to go on a run and need to show that they can go on a run because, like coming in this game, they were like 7% to make the playoffs or something like that. And they go out there and they show we can hang with the Colorado Avalanche. Sure. They're missing everybody, but they're still the Colorado Avalanche. They're still a good team. And the Canucks came out and they earned a win. And then 2 nights later, they did the exact, or a day and a half later, they earned a loss.
Yes. So, we're feeling good. Canucks going on a 5-game road trip. Tough one for sure, but they just knocked off the champs, only moving to 1 game below 500. And then, I guess we got to talk about yesterday now.
Yeah. The hat trick machines keep going against the Canucks. Kyle Connor, I feel like he's probably scored like 80 goals in however many games he's played against the Canucks because he seems to always do it.
Oh, he's so good.
It's one of those things where you can look at the stats. You're like, oh, Canucks outshot him 38-27. They're 1 for 3 on the power play. They didn't take a penalty. Yeah. They out-hit them. They out-blocked them. They had 10 less giveaways. Literally, the entire stat sheet looks great for the Vancouver Canucks until you look over a little more and you see that they lost 7-4.
Yes, and I want to talk about what I saw because I was watching with 3 dozen friends at the meetup. But I want to acknowledge Scott's donation. Thank you, Scott. I've been a season ticket holder for the last 8 years, and I'm seriously considering not renewing. going to games just isn't fun anymore, especially with no plan rebuild in place. Wow. And Scott, I would dare say you are not alone. Parker, you've been to a few games this year. Do you feel like the crowd's just kind of apathetic right now?
A little bit. Luckily,
Yeah.
lots of the games I've been to, I've been to only a few at home, and
Yeah.
they've all been pretty good games, right? They've
Yeah.
all been like down to the wire overtime, something like that. So it's always built up. But I mean, I had a similar thought. I just had quarter seasons a few years ago, and it was like, I started thinking about it. It's like, why commit myself to all these games when they're like cheaper, if not the same price on the secondary market, and I can be more
Yeah.
selective, and I can, I don't have to commit to the not as good games or commit
Yeah.
to the expensive ones. I can just buy the cheap ones because I don't care as much who they're against as much as, I want to see the team win. Yeah, I totally see it. Right. Like,
Mhm.
I only I always look day of for tickets, but if they're not if they're not someone like really trying to get rid of them, like I'm not gonna, at this point, I'm more than likely gonna see a loss. They've been bad at home.
Yeah.
I totally, you can be comfortable at home, and you can turn off the game if they're losing, and and yeah, it's definitely a commitment.
Washroom's always clean. Yeah, all those things. So
Yeah.
the thing, and for me, Scott, thank you for the donation, Parker, and I appreciate it. The one thing for me is a different perspective. I've been a season ticket holder for over 12 years upstairs with my buddy Mike. And then just this year, as many of you know, my son Sean and I split 4 down in the lowers with Jason, local realtor. And what we've been lucky, actually. We haven't been stuck with any tickets. We've been able to sell most of them for fair prices, not ripping anyone off, but doing okay ourselves. So, Parker, when we came in flat out in the summer, we thought that this team had a chance of making the playoffs, and we thought that this year was going to be the start of some sort of sustained momentum and run. And obviously, the furthest from the truth right now, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and you kind of see why ownership especially would push the route that they've been taking, right?
Yeah.
The somewhat competitive, every year this could be the year, because it gets people to show up, right? It gets people to commit to season tickets. Yourself as an example.
Yep.
When if it doesn't work, well, they're doing fine for the year, right? They already had their season tickets sign up. They did great season ticket wise. And it will end up hurting them in the long run, but you can kind of see why, the ownership doesn't want to have a few years of being terrible, because then, you're going to lose a lot of people, and you're going to lose the more casual fans who aren't focused on if the Canucks were to go full rebuild tomorrow and sell a bunch of people and be like, all right, hey, we got a bunch of young guys, we got a bunch of draft picks, we're building around Pettersson and Hughes, and that's it. You could be like, hey, I see a vision, and I'm I'm happy to be committed to paying attention to what the team's doing. Even though, you might not want to go to the games, whereas the average person, you're like, oh, they're just bad now, I'm not gonna pay my money and go see them. So it's definitely a bit of a back and forth.
And I am going to ask you something about that. I'm even going to write it down before I forget, fans. Okay, but I want to just finish wrapping up yesterday's game because it's easy. Winnipeg scored 2, we scored 2. Winnipeg scored 2, we scored 2. It seemed like a pattern until Winnipeg scored 3, and we couldn't come back. And I'm not sure, Parker, you end up seeing the highlights. So many of the goals were bad defensive plays, either a bad pinch to the goals because of that. Even the Kyle Connor's second goal, it started a bad pinch OEL, so now you're 2-on-1. But then Kyle Connor just blew past Myers, and it became a breakaway, actually.
I'm watching it right now. 2-on-1 casually.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's just passed him. Yeah, I mean, what's the goalie supposed to do here?
I know.
Like, you have one of the best, even a prime shooter, a guy who has, he's got a 20-goal season now. Like, he's a 40-goal scorer. What are you supposed to do? That's the defense's job, is to prevent things like that from happening. You put out Tyler Myers and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I think I saw an article. I don't remember who posted it today. It might have been on Canucks Army or something. It was like the Vancouver Canucks like $23 million or $16.2 million problem or whatever it was, or $13.2 million. It was just about Myers and OEL, or maybe the defense as a whole, and just how much of a disaster it is.
Yep. And then it actually, Miller quietly had a 3-point game, but he 3 points. One was on a power play, and then he was a -1. So that means he was on the ice for at least 3 of the Winnipeg goals. But I'm not blaming this on Miller at all. This one I am chalking up to bad D. And the goaltenders, I know Winnipeg's good. I know they got a lot of skill. They're big, they're fast. But Martin saves 11 of 14, and Delia does worse, 9 out of 13. So that's combined save percentage of 7 something. It's not good.
Yeah, it's 7 goals on 38 shots,
Oh.
which is way more than you should allow on 38
Yeah.
shots.
Oh no, we had the 38 shots. They
Oh,
only had
sorry,
27.
27 shots. Like
That's
7
even
on
worse.
38. That's more like 800.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 goals on 27 shots. You know, that's 7 on 28 would be 1 in every 4, right?
Yes.
So 7 on
Yeah.
27 is just under 750.
Yeah.
Which yeah, you know, you have Quinn Hughes playing 26 minutes and being a +1. Good on him. Ethan Bear was a +1 at 20 minutes. And then, yeah, everyone else, you know, Oliver Ekman-Larsson 20 minutes with 2 of those being on the power play is a -3.
Oh.
Yeah, it's and Tyler Myers 20 minutes -3 as well. It sounds to me like that Ekman-Larsson and Myers pairing is continues to be a bit of a problem spot.
Why do you think the Canucks have so much trouble against Winnipeg?
I don't know. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's just such a miserable place to be. It's just like they're just sad when they
Sorry.
get there.
That caught me off guard. That was pretty funny.
No, I genuinely don't know. It's, you know, Winnipeg has been like a pretty average team since
Yeah.
they've been in Winnipeg, like
Yeah.
consistently. And they've always had the Canucks number. And most of that is, you know, Hellebuck has usually been fantastic against the Canucks. But I mean, you're against Big Save Dave, right? It's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same guy at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So it's one of those ones where, yeah, you got the backup. It's a noon game, which I don't think helps anybody. I guess it's, you know, 2:00 there, but yeah, I really have no idea why they cannot beat Winnipeg.
I know. Maybe it's just a bad matchup there. Winnipeg's got a nice. Well, you just look at their top line of Connor and Ehlers and Dubois. In there, you have speed, you have skill, you have size, and Dubois. So I just think, Parker, that it's just a bad matchup from a standpoint of Winnipeg's faster and bigger. So what really advantage can you exploit if you don't, you know, if you're not as big and you're not as fast and not as skilled? I don't know. It was tough.
Yeah,
It was a tough one.
That's kind of everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
There's
No
your
wonder.
problem. You're just worse. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Jets have won 26 games now this year. They're at what, 667, something like that. It's like they're cruising along. Yeah, the Canucks just keep getting in their own way.
Yeah. Okay. So they will go 1 and 2. I think you got that right. I think I said 1-1-1. I was a little more optimistic, but yeah, they went 1 and 2 since last. Yeah, I think you nailed it again for a second straight week.
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't predict that it was going to be Colorado as the win. I think I said they beat the Islanders. They'll lose to Colorado, Winnipeg, and
Yeah.
I was half right.
Yeah. Well, at least you're honest. Okay. What do you want to talk about? Oh no, I know. I wrote it down. What was I going to ask you? You started to talk about trading, buying out, whatever, building around Pettersson, Hughes, and let's throw Demko in there for the heck of it, even though that is another asset. Are fans patient, mature, smart enough, ready for a rebuild, a true rebuild? Or are they going to say, "Oh man, we're wasting the best years of Pettersson and Hughes"? Don't do it.
I mean, you're already doing that, right? Like that's the argument is like, oh, you're wasting Pettersson's, you know, best years, and yeah, that's true, right? Forwards, the age curve, you know, for defensemen is like peak around 27. For forwards, they peak at like 24, 25. Like it's getting younger. And you know, Pettersson maybe is a bit of an exception, you know, with last year being as bad as it was, but I mean, he has shown that he is a true star that you can build around. I mean, there's a guy on this team with 30 goals who he was picked to be an all-star over, right? Because he's genuinely been so good. Would you rather have a couple of worse years do what the Rangers did or the Devils did, get some good assets and at least take a shot? Because sure, rebuilds don't work half the time. You know, that's the way it is. There are some times where it doesn't work and the team is bad for a very long time. But if you don't commit to anything and you stay in the middle and you pick 14th every year and you continue to get good players, or you trade the picks away for not good players, yeah, like you just run out. You just run out of good players, right? You're gonna lose a Bo Horvat because
Yep.
the cap gets tight, and you have to you're never getting these guys on these good stars on cheap contracts,
Yeah.
like an Andrei Kuzmenko, which they have now wasted a year of him at just under $1 million when the Athletic has him at like a $7 million market value. It's is the market mature enough? I think there's going to be a lot of people, myself included, who are like, "Oh, good, you're finally doing the thing you were supposed to do 7 years ago." Um, but again, does that mean it's not the right thing anymore?
Right.
I think they just have so much trouble committing to anything like that, and which is kind of fair. Most people don't survive rebuilds, right? Most management groups, but it's I just don't want this team. I don't want to be here in on January 9th, 2025, like, the Canucks are 2 games above 500. Will they make the playoffs? They have a 23% chance, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that what we want forever?
Right. No, yeah, absolutely not. And it's crazy to think that the way this team was going, you could have, yeah, that's what Trevor Linden wanted to do, and that's why he found himself ousted by Benning and Aquilini. Is Linden 4 or 5 years ago said it was time to rebuild. The Sedins were just retired. You had the Horvat and Besser and those guys right at the start of their careers, including Petey and Hughes, about to enter into the team. That would be the time to do so. But then we know the stories about the Ericssons, the Myers, the Pearsons, all these guys that are okay players. They're decent, but they're not. They don't move the needle. And now this is, and of course, then the big trade, the Arizona, really sealed their fate when it came to rebuild. $12 million and a ninth pick that turned out to be Dylan Gunther versus two guys that you're looking to try and buy out or move. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a real problem, and the problem is, where's the upward momentum if they don't go all in on a rebuild, so to speak.
Yeah.
Where are they after this year, right? Well, the prospects they have coming up. Okay, well, you have Lekari Mackey, who was not good in the World Juniors, and sure, he's young, and there's always time for that to turn around. But early returns, not great, right? I'm looking at the rest of the list here. Are you betting on the like Elias Pettersson 2.0? Probably not, right? I mean, do the Canucks have any? The Canucks have one first round pick that they don't have signed to a contract. That's Lekari Mackey. Everyone else, you got Podkolzin and Höglander, but they're 21, 22. They're not going to be stars, right? I think we're pretty sure about that. Danila Klimovich is on a heater right now.
Yeah. Our favorite player. Yeah.
But sure, is he? But again, we're talking about a guy who's picked it like in the 40s or wherever he ended up getting picked, or was it late first? Either way, I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're right. Early second. You're right.
Yeah, but it's you just if you're gonna keep adding 14th overall pick every year, and then okay, you're gonna pay Horvat a bunch of money to come back next year, or Kuzmenko a bunch of money to come back next year. Your roster doesn't get any better, and we're doing the same thing. And then okay, well, let's say the Canucks finish 20th in the league again next year. Well, we just keep doing the same thing over and over. You never get better. You never get worse.
Yes.
And that's you're just stuck in the middle.
You're so right. We got guys like Höglander, Podkolzin, who've played a bit, but yeah, they could be solid middle six guys, but they're not stars. You have unproven guys like Aiden McDonough. We don't even know if we're going to sign him. You have young guys like Lekari and Pettersson, as you said, that they may not be true impact players. Then you have all these guys like the Linus Carlsons, the Arshdeep Bains, and all these guys that are that are kind of good Abbotsford players, but you can't truly look at them and say, "Man, I can't wait till that guy makes the big club." So we're you look at our prospects, and it is quite bare, relatively speaking, and that's scary.
Yeah, all the names that you mentioned are guys that we shouldn't be excited about.
Yeah, fair enough.
But we are, because like if they turn out to be third line players, like sweet. Nice. but like that's not moving the needle, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna replace Curtis Lazar in 2 years. Great. Like it's just this was the team that they hitched their wagon to, right? They couldn't fix the defense all that much, but they had some turnaround, right? Like half the defenders are different, right? Ethan Bear, Travis Dermott, Riley Stillman, right? They are all new acquisitions. And one of them is having an impact positively, and that's Ethan Bear. Great.
Yes.
Not enough to move the needle. You look up front, Curtis Lazar, great. Not enough to move the needle. Ilya Mikheyev, been good. Value for money has been absolutely fine. Not enough, right? Because the defense is so bad. Dakota Joshua, again, another good move. Not enough to move the needle. There's all these, like, I think when I did my video on like the 1 year of having Alvin and Rutherford, and really the moral of the story was they have made so many totally fine moves that are so minor, and then their major move of giving JT Miller a ton of money is likely going to be a big net negative that completely overshadows multiple times any good minor moves that they make.
Well, and then the one that you really like, the Kuzmenko, that might not result in a long-term contract. Although I was going to ask you, I had that written down to talk about too. If we are resigned to the fact that Horvat's going to go, can we also be confident that the Canucks will do everything they can to re-sign Andrei Kuzmenko?
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. When is the team good, right?
Yeah.
That's a big part of the question. Are you going to get more value now for him if you were to, let's say, trade him at the trade deadline? He's basically free, and you can make him like free because at the trade deadline he's only gonna have like 400,000 left to cap it. If you want to retain that last 200,000, I guess you could. And yeah, he has basically zero cap hit. And could be a very awesome rental piece that has some the potential to re-sign.
Yeah.
Or I love Andrei Kuzmenko. I would love him to be a part of the team for a long time. But he is 26, right? We're talking about a guy who he's got like maybe a great 5 years ahead of him, right? Well, what if the Canucks aren't competing for another 3, right? Like, are you just going to hold on to this guy and then eventually he's not that good anymore and you don't get anything for him and he's just hitting the tail end as the Canucks are hitting their peak? You have to, if you're going to do this full rebuild, which I don't know if they will, you have to choose, who is your core for the next, for 3 years down the line when you're hopefully good, maybe 4, and get maximum value out of everyone else.
Yeah, all good points. And we've talked about how Kuzmenko with Petey has been such a really good find, and he's almost like what we hope Besser was going to be for Pettersson. So they play well together. Kuzmenko, you probably saw his interview recently. Very likable. Everyone loves talking to him. He's got an infectious smile, a crazy hair, good look. He's actually stepping out of a shell with Podkolzin down in Abbotsford. So there's so much to like about this player, but you are so right. That's why you could actually fetch a decent return from him, even though he's a rookie, basically, because of his cheap contract and his potential, like you said, to be an impact player for the next 4 or 5 years. So for those reasons why he's good and you might want to keep him because we need someone who can score on this team. Those are also the reasons why, if you're truly committing to rebuild, you have to consider moving Andrei Kuzmenko as well.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, again, the whole goal is having a good enough value on your salary cap to be a contender.
Yeah.
If, we've heard the number like 5 floated around for Andrei Kuzmenko, I think you're getting good value for money there. And that's one of those ones that I'd be totally happy with saying, hey, this is a good piece that we can sign for 5 years at $5 million a year. And he will just be good enough over that time because you still do have to have players on the team. That's one I'd be totally fine with.
Yep.
And again, him being a fan favorite really does add into that. But of course, it also depends on what you could get for him. The thing is, if you sign Kuzmenko to a 5x5, let's say, and 3 years down the line he's still really good, or even next offseason he's really good, or the year after he's really good, you can probably still get a bunch for him, right? If you really do need to get rid of him.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just like Kuzmenko's it's a decision you have to make by the trade deadline. You got 2 months. Like Kuzmenko and Horvat. Any UFAs are ones you got to make a decision by. It's Horvat, it's Kuzmenko, it's Luke Shen. Those are
Yes.
the only real ones. Luke Schen's probably not too expensive to bring back either.
Mm-hmm.
But you also probably could trade him at the deadline for, something, right? We
Yeah.
saw Ben Sherratt maybe get the first overall pick this year, right? Like that's a lottery pick for Ben Sherratt. So if
Yeah.
you can pull something like that, great. Um, but I could also see them seeing Luke Schenn as a guy they want around some younger players as a role piece as well. So again, but I don't you don't want to lose him for nothing because he does have some value right now.
Sure. Scott, we missed this earlier. Thank you for a second donation. Black Skate versus Tampa, apparently. Okay, I will not complain if that's the case, but thank you, Scott, for your generosity. By the way, a fan of the Flying Skate, Parker?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's
me
their
too.
best jersey.
Me too. Me too.
Especially
Oh,
if you have it, like when I bought mine, it's just like every time I go to a game, it's like I'm not wearing any of the other ones. Like it's
yes.
just so much nicer.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's their best.
A lot of people in the chat talking about Bo Horvat. And if we're talking about a rebuild or a T word, then obviously he is first and foremost because he is the biggest UFA on this team. He is the number one on many trade boards across the NHL, insiders, reporters, and the like. You and I have talked about the fact that maybe he's fine with leaving. There's all this angst about, oh my gosh, we might lose our captain. He may want to go to somewhere where a team is closer to contending. So I've heard, Parker, that they're going to try one last ditch attempt to see if they can make things work. Apparently, Stan Smeal, I saw footage of this at the Canucks open practice on Saturday. It was supposed to be Patrick Alvin, but apparently he was busy. So Smeal spoke to disappointment of some. He said, I heard the clip where he says, we really want to sign Bo, or said something like, we're going to do everything we can to sign Bo to mostly some applause. Having said all that, do you see this going anywhere, or is it simply they're making that a genuine last ditch effort, but let's not get our hopes up. If you like Bo, and remember, a lot of people, you can like Bo and you can hope that he gets traded for a good haul. Both can be true. And I think actually that's where I'm settling into, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think it's because everything we've seen is like the Canucks are going to make one last thing, but Bo will end up having to leave a good chunk of money on the table.
Right.
And I'm just thinking personally, am I willing to leave a big chunk of money on a table to play for a team that can't win, right?
Yep.
Or do I want to make more money and win more hockey games?
Yep.
I might be leaning in that direction. I think it's one of those things that it's probably just better for everybody, right? It probably ends up working out better for the Canucks if they do trade him, right? They get some sort of haul of assets. They get the cap space. They could do something with that. You could use that to sign Andrei Kuzmenko. You could go sign another player in the offseason. You could do something with that money. It's better for Bo Horvat because now he gets traded to a contender, a month and a half before the playoffs and has a chance to play meaningful playoff games for the second time in his career, really. I'm not including that first Calgary series. And I think it's just overall, it's just an overall win for everybody if he does get traded. It just seems like kind of a slam dunk move. It's like it's the classic bad team has an expiring player that they can't afford to re-sign.
Yeah.
It's happened so often, and it's always a big trade, and sometimes they win.
Mm-hmm. What's your confidence level that Rutherford and Alvin will have the clear head that we seem to have, that for the betterment of this team, they will indeed be able, willing is one thing, able to move him for a decent return?
They have to. Like it's just seemingly it would just be absolute incompetence if they couldn't get there, right? Like Rutherford is known for trading guys. That was his thing in Pittsburgh, right? Is he somehow going to forget how to make a trade? Sure, some of his trades didn't go well, but he has a lot of trading experience. Patrick Alvin, they've made a bunch of trades this year, right? They've all been minor, but they're willing to shake things up. I think if they go back to Horvat and they say, "Here's our number," and he says no, then what are they going? Are they just going to sit there with him? They're gonna be making phone calls. Apparently, they have been. Get on the phone. Get a bunch of people bidding for his services and take the best one. It really seems like it shouldn't be. It happens so many times every year that it would be just seemingly crazy if they didn't find a way out of it.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so we're on the same page. Trade Horvat, maybe even trade Kuzmenko. Shen, we're probably not going to get it. We'll get something, but we might not get as much as I think some people are kind of predicting because he's not going to be as valuable on another team as he is here. We think that this market is mature, intelligent, emotionally stable enough to handle a true rebuild, which we haven't seen in years. So we've said all of that, Parker. And before we go to the people, I want to know: do you think it actually happens? We think we're actually going to get a true rebuild?
No, I think they'll get halfway there.
Right,
I
which is the
think
worst
they'll
thing,
do-
right?
Yeah, I think they'll trade Horvat because I
Yep.
think Horvat will make them. I think he will say, "No, I am not signing this contract. You
Yep.
either expire or you trade me to a contender at the deadline," right?
Yes.
And their hands are going to be tied into making the right move.
Mm-hmm.
Kuzmenko, again, it's one of those things where I think they're smart enough to know that they have to do something by the trade deadline, right?
Yep.
So but I don't think they're going to lean the trade route. Again, I think they're going to go to Andrei Kuzmenko with a contract in hand and say, "This is our number," and they'll keep negotiating up till the deadline. And if they can't get it done, then they make the trade. But it seems like their priority on everybody is to keep people, which is kind of surprising, being a new management group that didn't draft any of these guys. They signed Kuzmenko, that's different, but they didn't draft Bo Horvat, right? They shouldn't have theoretically this big attachment to him. Although when a guy does score, 30 goals in 45 games or whatever it's been, 40 games, maybe that makes you a little bit more attached. It's weird to me that their goal does seem to be to keep everything together.
Yeah.
When we've seen, it's been the same team for the last couple of years, and barring minor pieces, those are the only things that have changed, and we haven't seen any sign of progress.
And the signing of JT Miller basically proves your point perfectly in that they did not have to do that deal. He was in the exact same spot as Bo Horvat. His contract ends at the end of this season, not last season. So when they announced that deal the first weekend of September, we couldn't believe it. It hit everyone out of left field. It came out of left field, I should say. And the term was staggering. The money was staggering. Imagine how much fun the season would be, Parker, despite all the losing. Imagine if we had two prime UFAs. Maybe Miller's value wouldn't be as high, but still they'd be in the top 10 of any trade board. And then the Canucks would have so many options. Package them. One guy here, one guy there. This guy sign, this guy don't sign. But they basically handcuffed themselves. They hitched their wagon, 10 months earlier, 8 months earlier, trade deadline, than they needed to. And that's kind of maddening too.
Yeah, with the JT Miller thing was weird because it seemed like such a slam dunk move to make the trade. And looking back, it was. Because you literally had a player at the top his value will ever be. That goes for trading him. That also goes for signing him. Because if they waited until the end of this year and he's having the same performance this year, maybe that number does come down a bit. Sure, the trade offers are probably worse, but also so is the signing offers. So you're either planning on trading him at the end of last season or signing him at the end of this season, and then if you can't come to a deal, you make the trade. It just seemed like, again, because this whole trading Horvat thing feels like a slam dunk and feels like the obvious move every time we talk about it, but they've already missed the obvious move once. They've made one pretty big blunder that is already apparent, and the contract hasn't even kicked in yet. Do we, they haven't shown us that they're going to make the right move yet, so we're just kind of sitting here sweating.
Parker, put this in perspective. I'm going to be 55. I'm going to be 55 years old when JT Miller's contract's done. And I'm not the one playing, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, you think about how long a guy like Horvat's been here. It's like the same amount of time, right? And it feels like Horvat's been here for so long, right? Shout out to Sagar's Rage.
Yes, I gotta get it. Yeah,
saying trade Horvat has the feel of the '98 Linden trade. That trade got the Canucks Bertuzzi. Bure trade got them Jovo. The Bure one, you'd still rather have Bure, but yeah, it's again, if you don't have the option though, you make the move, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have Jovanovski or nobody? Would you rather have Bertuzzi or nobody?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and whoever the marquee player is in a return for a Bo Horvat, at least you get something, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
again, you do get that cap space, because cap space in a parity salary cap NHL league is
It's a
it kind
weapon.
of is king.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate
Mhm.
that. Wow. Okay. We got 10 minutes to go. Should we, anything else you want to bring up? No, let's do this. Let's predict our next week, and then we'll get into people's comments. Does that work for you?
Sure, we got what, 4 games before next Monday.
Wow.
We've got all 4 on the road. We've got
Great.
Canucks at Pittsburgh, Canucks
Uh-oh.
at Tampa, Canucks
Uh-oh.
at Panthers, Canucks at Hurricanes. That sounds like 3 really good teams and a team that was really good until this year. And the Panthers.
Yes.
This
The Canucks
feels
aren't
like,
gonna. They're not gonna go 0-4, are they?
this
Literally
feels like a
0-4.
slam dunk 1-3. What are you seeing? You're seeing the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're just a better
Yeah.
team than the Canucks. You're seeing the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're a way better team than the Canucks. You're seeing a beatable team in Florida on the Saturday, and then a scheduled loss on the Sunday with a 2 p.m. start on a back-to-back.
Against a team that's putting up 60 shots a game.
Yeah, 67 or whatever it was. Yeah,
Okay.
that's I don't see a world in which they win that Carolina game. Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay, maybe like 25% chance in each, and then the Panthers is probably a toss-up.
Yeah. I'm going, 1-3, whatever. I'm going 1-2-1, ever the optimist. Yeah, that's very optimistic. They sneak out a point somewhere between Tampa, Pittsburgh, and Carolina. They beat Florida. Yeah, I'm going 1-2-1.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So right now, where the Canucks stand, I mean, currently by points percentage, they are 7th in picks, in draft pick, I think.
Wow. Wow.
Crazy how fast that happened. Going 4-6 in your last 10. Philadelphia got ahead of them. Ottawa jumped ahead of them as well. I mean, we saw the finale of the World Juniors was this last week too, right?
Yep.
And there are some real good players at the top of that board, right? Bedard, the obvious one, but Fantilli, who was pretty good in that tournament. Matvei Mishkov for Russia, who's like this small guy who's going to stay in Russia for the next 2 years, is so intriguing because it's a name that could fall in as people are scared of, the whole Russia factor, him, having a 2-year contract out there, but he looks like he's going to be this unreal player. There's so many good players at the top, and it's like, well, don't you want to pick high? Maybe you should trade some players like Bo Horvat, maybe sooner than later. Maybe don't wait till March. Maybe you want another pick around like the 20 range. Maybe a guy like, Sandin Pellikka for Sweden was a name that we heard a million times during that tournament. You can pick up a guy like that around there. It just seems so obvious.
And we keep talking about the Canucks being in this horrible middle spot, but they truly are. They are 6 points out, not of a wildcard spot, out of 10th. So in their conference. So they're 6 points out of even being near a wildcard position, but they're only 5 points out of being in the bottom 5 of the league. So as much as I hate the T word, as much as I want the Canucks to win, even I can see that they're closer to the bottom than they are to making the playoffs. And if there's ever is a year to not rush Demko back, to trade Horvat, to trade Kuzmenko as much as I love him, to not give your stars so many minutes, they're all adding up to the T word, which I can't say. This is the year to at least consider it. I won't even say this is the year to do it. This is the year to consider it, as we've articulated for the past 45 minutes.
Yeah, and the problem really is, how tight they are to moving up in the standings, right? Like, because they're at, a 474 points percentage right now. Like a win in their next game would move them from like 26th to 23rd or something like that, right? That's 3 draft spots from one win. That's what one win is worth right now. Guess what trading a guy like Horvat does now instead of in March does? Probably loses you 2 or 3 more games. That probably moves you another spot up the draft board, right? Like the earlier that you commit to these things, And because they're not making it, right? Like you look
Right.
at where they need to be. You mentioned they're 6 points out of being in the hunt. Yeah, they're 8 points back of Edmonton, who has a second wildcard spot. Sure, they have 2 games in hand. Yeah, but their next 2 games are like, what was it, Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. They're probably not
Yeah.
winning either of those games, right?
Uh, yeah.
So
Exactly.
they have a minus 19 goal differential. But if you make those moves early, you like the easy ones, right? Like Horvat
Yeah.
and maybe Shen,
Mhm.
and you suddenly get quite a bit worse,
Yeah.
and it just seems so obvious.
Parker, my amazing bowling analogy that I came up with this week as I was watching Jacob, as you know, bowling in the Nationals, and he was first after day one. He was second after the first part of day two. He had to finish top four. Top four make it to Team Canada. There were guys chasing him, and Jacob was only 60 points clear of fifth. What I realized is there were guys in spots 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 all trying to battle each other to make up those 60 points. So it wasn't as simple as one guy out bowling Jacob by 60 in the last few games. That guy also had to pass 2, 3 other guys. And I think for the exact same thing for the Canucks. It's one thing to say, yeah, they win their 2 in hand. They're only 4 behind Edmonton. Oh yeah, but they got to leapfrog Nashville, Colorado, and St. Louis in doing so. So I agree with you. It's physically impossible, almost 4%, right? What's we talking about? 4% playoff
I think
odds?
it's 4% to make the playoffs, and it's 4% to get first overall.
Oh, okay.
Now, going by stats, like technically, if the season finished and the Canucks were in 7th, they'd have 6.5% of getting first overall.
Right.
I think the athletics thing likes the Canucks to get ahead of like Philly and Ottawa. But yeah, like would you? And people will say like, you're gonna do all that tanking when maybe you get to 4th and it's only a 10% chance you get Bedard.
Yeah.
It's like if you miss, you still get 4th overall, right? It's
And
still
a really good draft.
an
Yes.
extra couple
Yes.
picks, right?
Yeah.
Like we're talking about getting maybe a star instead of a good first line player at that point, which all makes the difference in the long run. And maybe you're adding another pick or 2, right? Maybe you're trading Bo Horvat and getting like the 27th overall pick.
Yeah.
Maybe you can use that to trade up. Maybe maybe it's a pick. Maybe you trade them to a team and they fall apart, and maybe it ends up being a lottery pick, right? Who knows, right? Maybe it's the fit. Maybe they end up being 17th and they win the lottery. Like, again, the odds are so low, but you're just buying yourself more chances. You're buying yourself, better players by making the moves.
Yes. By the way, who wins this trade? Me and you for the rights for Connor Bedard.
Interesting. Because then we don't get to cover Connor Bedard. Who are we getting traded to? Does that mean we have to be Columbus fans?
Columbus, Chicago, maybe.
I have a no trade clause in that case. I'm not going to either of those.
Fair enough. And I think they may have to throw in some picks on one side, but we won't say which side. We'll let you guys figure that out.
All right, let's take a few questions. It's
Sure.
almost 8, but I can wait a little bit.
You got a couple minutes? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not in a huge rush to get out the door.
Okay.
Dustin says that he tried the lottery simulator. Canucks won on the 3rd try. Unfortunately, there is only one try when they actually do it. Let's see how many times it takes me.
Two draws.
Took my 4th.
Oh, okay.
And the Canucks got on their 2nd. They got 2nd overall.
Okay.
They didn't even get Bedard, but they got Fantilli. So yeah, I mean, hey, the 5th time I did it, they got 1st overall. So sure, 1 in 5. Let's go with it.
Asian goalie. This is actually a very realistic take. We have the least control in the lottery. You could, the T word. It doesn't guarantee anything. You could increase your chances a little bit. You got to weigh that against the pride of the players, but we'll talk about that another time. I'm more interested to see what management does with the trade deadline, with trades before the trade deadline. Absolutely, and that's what we tried to spend a few. The majority of today's show breaking down is what are Rutherford and Alvin thinking, and what are some of the pieces that we have on this team that could be worth trading. Thank you, Asian goalie, for that comment.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter when we're talking about odds of moving up in the draft lottery, right? Yeah. Tank doesn't really matter. Oh, you're gonna go from 6.5% to 9.5%. That's still a 91% chance you don't get anything out of it. You know what you also did in that time? You also moved up 3 spots in the draft, right? You moved up from 7th to 4th.
Good point.
Big. That's a lot of trade value, right? Let's say you trade everyone now. you move up from 7th to 4th, and then you traded back down to 7th, you're probably adding another first round pick later down the line, right?
Mhm.
To move up those 3 spots. So it does have a lot of value the earlier
Yeah.
that you do that. And then you're also adding, another first round pick in the trade, maybe 2, and suddenly, now you have 4th overall and another late first round pick and maybe a prospect. It definitely does add up.
I'm just thinking, Jack makes a good point. Last year, we had a small chance to make the playoffs, didn't make it, and look at them now exactly in a worse spot. Can you imagine, Parker, if this takes it's not like next level genius thinking, but the wherewithal to say, okay, the 2023 draft is going to be so good. Why don't we not re-sign JT Miller to a $56 million 7-year contract until we absolutely know what our team's looking like next year? Now that I think this out, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, and maybe instead of trading JT Miller, which maybe it was our plan when we extended him, maybe we wait till the better draft year to trade him.
Yes.
And then then our first round pick is worth more that we get. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it really makes sense, which is why it hurts so much.
Bedard is the only solution to this mathematical equation.
We just let's say the Canucks get up to like 3rd. Unlikely.
Yeah.
Anaheim's not good enough. San Jose's not either. I think 5th is within reach. I think Arizona could go on a run. If the Canucks have like 5th overall and Bedard says I'll only go to Vancouver, what does it take for the Canucks to move up to 1?
Oh,
take a lot, I'm sure.
Can you? Okay, great question. Let's end on this. Let's say we are 5th. We want to move up to 1, the rights to draft Bedard. Can you see a deal that gets it done without? No, it's got to be one of Petey or Hughes is in that deal.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can't say without Pettersson because it would have to be Pettersson,
right?
Which would hurt a lot, and probably still be worth it because he's that good of a player.
Sad but true.
Yeah. All right, is that where we want to wrap up?
Sure.
On that fun note. Folks, if you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, do all that good stuff. If you got another, your show's at 11?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go figure something to do. To do for 3 hours.
You've all got 3 hours to kill before you go to Clay's live stream later. If you want to kill 5 minutes of that reading my article on Canucks.com, that would be nice.
That's right. Up. Very quickly, congratulations. Your article did go up. Quickly tell everyone who it's about, what it's about.
Yeah, it was on Niels Oman's journey to the NHL, and then I had to rewrite it to be about his journey because he's no longer in the NHL. But go give that a read. I don't know if they track how many people click on it, but it would be cool if a lot of people did. So if you need some light reading, go do that. Otherwise,
it's a very good article, Parker. Congratulations. It's
otherwise, Clay, I will let you give your parting words for this fine Monday night.
All right. Well, good luck in your hockey game. I hope you are more like the Seahawks and less like the Canucks, at least for today. For us, we have 4 games to break down next Monday. So Parker and I will try and track which ones we watch and actually contribute next week. This week was a little bit foggy, but overall, we'll see. We think we know where this team is. We're definitely going to know where this team is and which direction they need to go at this time next week. Parker says 1 and 3.
2 and 2, like they probably will, and keep it in the middle.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right, folks. But if you missed any part, you can find your favorite podcast platform in a few minutes. You can rewind on YouTube here. Otherwise, have a good week, and we will talk to you all next Monday.